There's something important we all need to understand today. You are called to be a blessing. You're called to lift people up, to encourage, to help. But here's the key. You are not called to fix everyone. You are not supposed to carry people who refuse to walk on their own. Some people are not ready to change. Some people enjoy the attention of staying broken. And if you keep pouring your heart, your time, and your energy into people who have no intention of growing, you'll find yourself drained, discouraged, and distracted from your own destiny. The scripture says, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That means you need to be selective about who you invest in. It's good to be compassionate, but you must also be wise. There are people who will take your kindness, but they won't take responsibility. You can encourage them, you can pray for them, but if they won't take the steps to better their life, you need to release them and keep moving forward. You are not being unkind. You are protecting the calling God has placed on your life. You see, there are people who are not interested in changing. They just want someone to listen to their excuses. They don't want a solution. They want sympathy. And if you're not careful, they will pull you into their drama. Every time you see them, it's the same problem, same complaint. No progress. You're spending hours trying to help them, but they're not willing to take even a small step. That's not being a friend. That's enabling dysfunction. You've got to recognize when your helping is actually hurting, when your encouragement is becoming a crutch. Then there are those who want your help, but not to grow, not to get free, but to stay comfortable in their dysfunction. They know as long as you keep showing up, they don't have to change. They've learned to rely on your generosity, your kindness, to stay exactly where they are. But you were never designed to be someone else's lifeboat. Sometimes the best way you can help someone is to stop helping them. When you step back, they are forced to look up. They're forced to find their own strength, to discover what God has placed inside of them. Let me tell you, you're not responsible for everyone's happiness. You're not called to fix every broken situation. Don't let guilt manipulate you into staying in a place God is calling you away from. Some people are assignments, yes, but others are distractions. And if you allow distractions to occupy your time, you'll miss the divine appointments God has for you. When you release people who refuse to grow, you're not giving up on them, you're putting them in God's hands. I want to encourage you today, be generous, be compassionate, but also be discerning. You can't help people who won't help themselves. You're called to run your race, not carry everyone else on your back. When you learn to let go of those who drain you, you'll find new strength, new joy, and new opportunities waiting for you. Stay focused, stay faithful, and watch how God elevates your life to new levels. There are people in life who will never step into their destiny because they refuse to take responsibility for their own life. You can encourage them, you can pray for them, you can offer them advice, but if they won't make the decision to change, all of your efforts will be in vain. You are not responsible for carrying people who won't take responsibility for themselves. You are not supposed to fix what they refuse to acknowledge. The truth is, you can't change what someone denies. If a person continually blames others for where they are, if they refuse to look inward and make adjustments, then no matter how much time you invest, they will stay stuck in the same place. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone is to lovingly step back and allow them to face the reality of their choices. There's a difference between helping someone who is willing to grow and enabling someone who refuses to change. You were created to lift people up, but you were never created to carry someone who keeps choosing to stay down. Some people are always looking for someone to rescue them. They're not looking for guidance. They're looking for someone to do the work for them. But life doesn't work that way. Growth comes from personal responsibility. Until a person is willing to say, made some mistakes, and I need to make some changes, they will never truly be free. You can't carry their load for them. You can't make decisions for them. They have to come to a place where they're ready to rise up and take ownership of their life. Many times we get so caught up in trying to help people that we lose sight of the fact that they have a part to play. We end up doing all the work, carrying all the emotional weight, and they're just coasting along, making no effort to change. That's not being helpful. That's being drained. You have to guard your energy. You have to recognize when someone is taking advantage of your kindness. Helping someone doesn't mean you take over their life. Helping someone means you guide them, you encourage them, but you also allow them to take the steps they need to grow. If they're not willing to take those steps, you need to release them and trust that God will work on their heart. You can't force someone to be responsible. Responsibility is a choice. Until they make that choice, your efforts will feel like you're pouring water into a cup with holes. You'll keep giving, and they'll keep leaking. You'll keep encouraging, and they'll keep making excuses. That's a cycle that will wear you out emotionally and spiritually. You have to be wise. You have to discern when your helping is no longer helping. There are people who will pull you into their endless problems, but they're not interested in finding solutions. They want someone to join their pity party. They want someone to validate their excuses. But you are not called to stay in the pit with them. You are called to rise higher. And sometimes rising higher means you have to walk away from people who refuse to climb. It's not being unkind to step back. It's not being selfish to guard your heart. The scripture tells us to guard our hearts because out of it flows the issues of life. If you're constantly drained, constantly frustrated because someone refuses to grow, it will affect every area of your life. You can't fulfill your purpose while you're carrying the weight of people who won't carry themselves. It's a hard truth, but some people will only change when they hit rock bottom. As long as you keep cushioning their fall, as long as you keep stepping in to fix their mess, they'll never feel the full consequence of their choices, and without consequence, there's no motivation to change. It's a loving thing to let someone face their own responsibilities. You're not abandoning them, you're giving them the opportunity to grow. Sometimes people need to struggle a little so they can develop their own strength. They need to learn how to fight their own battles, how to pray for themselves, how to trust God for their own breakthrough. You can't do that for them. You can point them in the right direction, but they have to walk it out. You have your own destiny to fulfill. You have your own race to run. If you're constantly being pulled into someone else's drama, you'll never have the time or energy to pursue what God has for you. There are people who are draining the life out of you, not because they're bad people, but because they refuse to take control of their life. They've gotten comfortable being a victim. They've gotten used to relying on others. But you're not helping them by playing along. You're only delaying their growth. The moment you step back, it may be uncomfortable, but it's in that discomfort that they may finally wake up and decide to change. You have to have the courage to say, I love you, but I can't carry this for you anymore. That's not being mean. That's being responsible with the calling on your life. Sometimes we think we're showing love by constantly stepping in, but real love knows when to step back. Real love knows when to say no. Real love understands that growth requires responsibility. You can pray for them. You can encourage them, but you can't fix them. That's God's job. Your job is to stay faithful to your assignment. Your job is to protect your peace. You're not helping anyone by allowing their irresponsibility to become your burden. You have to stay strong enough to walk away when necessary. Don't let guilt keep you trapped in relationships where you're doing all the giving and they're doing all the taking. That's not a healthy relationship. That's a one-sided drain on your life. Be kind, be loving, but also be wise when to offer a hand and know when to let go. You have to keep your heart healthy. You have to keep your spirit full. You can't do that if you're constantly weighed down by people who refuse to grow up and take responsibility. The truth is, you're not being mean by protecting your peace. You're being a good steward of the life God has given you. You're not obligated to carry people who choose to stay in dysfunction. You can love them from a distance. You can cheer them on from afar. But you don't have to let their choices derail your destiny. It's time to rise up and walk in wisdom. You have a calling. You have a purpose. Don't let irresponsible people pull you away from it. Help those who are ready to grow, but have the courage to release those who are not.
There are people in life who will constantly drain your energy, consume your time, and occupy your thoughts, yet they never make any effort to change. These individuals are not interested in solutions. They're comfortable living in the problem. You can counsel them, pray for them, offer them resources, but after a while, you realize it's the same conversation over and over. They're not looking for a breakthrough. They're looking for attention. Every time you meet them, it's a new crisis, a new drama, but if you look closely, it's just a different version of the same old story. The issue isn't always the problem itself. It's that they are not willing to do what it takes to grow. And if you keep allowing these people to drain your emotional and spiritual energy, you'll find yourself tired, frustrated, and unable to focus on the assignments God has given you. There's a difference between being compassionate and being drained. Some people thrive on drama. They live in a constant state of chaos, and they're always looking for someone to pull into their whirlwind. If you're not careful, you'll spend hours, days, even years trying to fix situations that were never yours to fix. These people have no intention of changing. They're not looking for help to get better. They're looking for an audience to their dysfunction. And if you keep showing up, they'll keep performing. You'll become their go-to person every time there's a problem. But not once will they take your advice. Not once will they take responsibility. You have to recognize when your helping is becoming harmful to your own well-being. You can't allow people to use your kindness as a crutch for their unwillingness to change. It's good to be there for people, to support them in difficult times, but you are not supposed to be their emotional dumping ground. Some people will keep coming back to you, not because they value your wisdom, but because you're willing to listen to the same complaints without expecting them to grow. That's not a healthy relationship. That's emotional exhaustion. You have to protect your peace. You have to draw boundaries. Just because someone keeps knocking at your door doesn't mean you're obligated to answer every time. When you allow people to constantly drain your energy, it begins to affect every area of your life. You lose focus, you lose motivation, you even start to carry their weight as if it's your own. But you were never meant to carry burdens that aren't yours. You were never designed to be someone's permanent emotional support system while they make no effort to stand on their own. It's one thing to help someone who's struggling but wants to grow. It's a whole other situation when someone keeps coming back with the same problems, the same excuses, and no desire to change. There comes a time when you have to recognize that constantly giving your energy to people who refuse to change is not noble. It's unwise. You're pouring into a vessel that refuses to hold anything. You're sowing seeds into soil that won't allow them to grow. You can't force someone to want better for themselves. You can inspire them, you can pray for them. But at the end of the day, they have to make the choice to rise up. And until they do, you need to guard your energy. You need to invest in people who are ready to grow, who are willing to change, who appreciate the help and are committed to walking it out. It's easy to feel guilty, to think, if I don't help them, who will? But that's not your burden to carry. You are not the savior. You are not responsible for fixing everyone's life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to step back and allow them to face the consequences of their own choices. When you stop enabling their behavior, it forces them to either grow up or stay stuck, but that decision is not yours to make. It's theirs. You're not being selfish by setting boundaries. You're being a good steward of your life, your peace, and your purpose. You have to be selective about where you invest your energy. Not everyone is called to walk with you on your journey. Some people are distractions sent to drain you, to slow you down, to keep you so entangled in their problems that you never have the time or energy to pursue what God has for you. You need to discern who is an assignment and who is a distraction. An assignment is someone who is willing to grow, who values your input, who is ready to take steps forward. A distraction is someone who keeps pulling you into the same cycle with no intention of changing. You have to know when to release them. Some people are addicted to attention. They don't want solutions, they want someone to feel sorry for them. They thrive on being the victim, and as long as you keep showing up, they'll keep pulling you into that role. But you were not created to be someone's emotional crutch. You were created to live with peace, joy, and purpose. You can't do that if you're constantly being drained by people who refuse to change. You have to rise up and protect your emotional and spiritual health. When you step back from people who constantly drain you, you're not abandoning them. You're giving them the opportunity to rely on God, to develop their own strength, to grow up and take responsibility. Sometimes the best way you can help someone is by not helping them. When you remove yourself from being their constant source of support, it forces them to seek strength from within. It may be uncomfortable at first, but in the long run, it's what they need to grow. You also need to realize that you can't fix in people what only God can fix. You can't heal wounds that they refuse to confront. You can't motivate someone who's committed to staying stuck. That's God's territory. Your role is to encourage, to support, but not to carry. You're not being mean by walking away. You're being obedient to the calling on your life. You're making space for the right people to enter your life. People who will pour back into you. People who will appreciate your help. People who are ready to grow. You have to prioritize your own mental and spiritual health. You can't pour from an empty cup. The more you allow people to drain you, the less effective you'll be in fulfilling your own purpose. That means you have to be intentional about who you give your time and energy to. There will always be people who want your attention, your time, your emotional energy. But you have to decide who is worthy of that investment. You have to recognize when helping someone is no longer helping them, and it's only hurting you. That's when it's time to lovingly release them, to step back, and to focus on what God has called you to do. You can pray for them from a distance. You can believe for their breakthrough. But you don't have to allow their constant drama to consume your life. When you learn to protect your energy from people who drain you, you'll find new strength. You'll find new opportunities. You'll have the clarity to hear God's direction for your life. You'll be able to invest in relationships that are life-giving, relationships that inspire you, encourage you, and help you grow. You'll be able to step into your destiny with confidence, knowing that you are no longer weighed down by distractions. So, there are people who don't want your help to get free. They want your help to stay comfortable in their dysfunction. They are not interested in breaking free from what's holding them back. They've learned to adapt to their struggles, and instead of working toward change, they look for people who will make their dysfunction easier to live with. You can spend your time giving them advice, offering them opportunities, making sacrifices to help them move forward. But if they're content where they are, your efforts will only keep them more comfortable in a place they should be uncomfortable. Some people don't want freedom because freedom requires responsibility. Freedom demands effort. It's easier for them to stay in dysfunction and rely on your help than it is to step out in faith and change. When you keep helping people who want to stay comfortable in their dysfunction, you're not lifting them up. You're actually enabling them to stay stuck. You're creating a cushion that softens the discomfort of their poor choices. But God never intended for you to be someone's cushion for dysfunction. There are times when discomfort is the very thing that will wake a person up. Struggle can be a powerful motivator for change. When you keep stepping in to fix, to rescue, to make things easier, you're removing the very thing that could lead them to transformation. It's not easy to watch people we care about struggle. It's not easy to see them go through hard times. But you have to understand that there are seasons where struggle is necessary for growth. Just like a butterfly needs to wrestle its way out of the cocoon to strengthen its wings, people need to face their own battles to develop their inner strength. When you constantly intervene, you're not helping them grow. You're keeping them dependent. And dependency can be a trap that keeps people from stepping into their full potential. Some people have learned how to use other people's compassion to maintain their comfort zone. They know exactly what to say to pull on your heartstrings. They know how to present their problems in a way that makes you feel responsible for their happiness. But you have to realize you are not responsible for carrying people who refuse to walk. You are not assigned to be someone's permanent life raft while they have no intention of learning how to swim. You can give them the tools, you can point them in the right direction, but they have to be willing to take the steps themselves. The longer you allow someone to rely on you for comfort in their dysfunction, the harder it becomes for them to develop the drive to change. You're not being mean by stepping back. You're allowing them to face the discomfort that might finally push them toward growth. When they no longer have someone to lean on, they'll be forced to lean on God. They'll be forced to discover their own strength. That's when true change happens, not when you're doing the work for them, but when they're ready to take ownership of their life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to create space. The space gives people room to grow. It allows them to take responsibility. You can't carry someone's burden for them forever. If they won't carry their own load, it will eventually weigh you down and drain you of the energy you need for your own journey. You have to protect your peace, protect your purpose, and recognize when your help is no longer help. Helping someone stay comfortable in dysfunction isn't kindness, it's delay. You're delaying their breakthrough, delaying their progress, and delaying your own purpose. It's not your job to make life easier for people who are not willing to change. You can't want freedom for someone more than they want it for themselves. If they're not willing to do the work, to face their fears, to confront their bad habits, then all of your efforts will only keep them in the same cycle. You'll find yourself exhausted, frustrated, and wondering why they're not getting better. But it's not about your effort, it's about their willingness. They have to want it. They have to decide to get up, to fight, to grow. Until they do, your help will only serve to make them more comfortable where they should be uncomfortable. There's a story of a man who found a caterpillar struggling to get out of its cocoon. Out of kindness, he decided to help by cutting the cocoon open. But what he didn't realize was that the struggle to break free was necessary to develop the butterfly's wings. By removing the struggle, he crippled the butterfly. The same principle applies to people. The struggle, the discomfort, the hard times, they're all part of the growth process. When you interfere and make it too easy, you're robbing them of the very experiences that will shape them into who they're meant to be. You have to trust that God is working in their life. Your job is not to carry them through every difficulty. Your job is to point them to the one who can transform them. You can pray for them, encourage them, but you also have to step back and let them face their own journey. Now, sometimes they need to feel the discomfort of staying the same before they're motivated to change. Your constant involvement might actually be preventing them from experiencing the turning point they need. People who want your help to stay comfortable in dysfunction will often resist any advice that requires them to change. They're not interested in solutions that demand effort. They'll agree with you in conversation, but when it comes to action, they'll retreat back to what's familiar. You have to recognize when someone is using your support as a way to avoid growth. You can't force someone to grow. You can inspire them, but they have to choose to take the steps themselves. It's important to remember that you have a limited amount of time, energy, and emotional capacity. You have to be a good steward of those resources. When you're constantly pouring into people who refuse to grow, you're depleting the resources that could be used to fulfill your own calling, to help people who are ready to change, who are willing to do the work. You're not being unkind by redirecting your energy. You're being wise. When you step back, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilty. But you have to remember that your role is to inspire, not to carry. You're not responsible for someone else's growth. They have to do their part. When you allow them to feel the discomfort of their choices, you're giving them the opportunity to rise up, to develop their own wings, to become stronger. You're not walking away from them. You're giving them space to grow. You also have to remember that you can't be someone's savior. That's a role only God can fill. You can't heal their wounds. You can't fix their dysfunction. You can only point them in the right direction. When they're ready, they'll rise. Until then, you need to focus on your own journey, on the people who are ready to grow, who appreciate your help, who are willing to walk it out. That's where your energy will be most effective. You have to protect your peace. You have to guard your emotional and spiritual health. When you stop helping people stay comfortable in their dysfunction, you're freeing yourself to walk fully in your purpose. You're making room for divine connections, for people who will pour back into you, who will grow with you. You're stepping into a place of balance, of wisdom, where you can be a blessing without being drained. You're not being mean. You're being wise. You're not abandoning them. You're giving them the chance to discover their own strength. And as you stay faithful to your own path, you'll see new doors open, new opportunities arise, and you'll be in a position to help people who are truly ready to change.